I start with the pawn to e4. My opponent plays e5, and I'm going to play the king's gambit, f4. I want to deflect his pawn out of the center, and that's exactly what happens. I know he can play queen check, and I could prevent it with knight to f3. But personally, I like to play the line with bishop to c4 and let him play queen, h4 check. He doesn't actually do it. Instead, he plays knight to c6. If queen h4 check had happened, I would have moved my king to f1. Then I would have played knight to f3 to push back his queen. And it's true that he would have prevented my king from castling, but I would have had a lot of development. The knight and the bishop developed aggressively. Now he plays knight to c6, so I think I'm going to play d4. The center, I free my bishop to attack the pawn on f4, and I still leave him the option of a match. 4, but he doesn't want it. He doesn't play it. Instead, he plays d6. Now, if I take on f4 with a check on match 4, I could play g3, and the pawn will protect my bishop by pushing back his queen. So why not? But I'm going to give him one more chance to play. This move, queen to h4 check, I would really like him to play it to show you a bit of the ideas behind this move, actually. And now he's really thinking about this move. Queen h4, he senses that I might have an idea. That's why he doesn't want to play it. This move, queen to h4, which is still tempting, at this level around 1000 elo, opponents always go for queen to h4 and the possibility of uncastling the king because I can't play. g3 he takes, and if I recapture, he would grab my rook. But no, he plays g5, so I'm going to play knight to f3. Oh well, there won't be this idea with d4 check. He plays bishop to g4, and I'm going to the castle here. So I'm down a pawn, but I have a center of pawns and good development. Still, I have quite a few pieces developed, but it's his move. So my opponent plays g7. He attacks the pawn d4 twice, which I protect twice, but unfortunately my knight on f3 is pinned. So it's not participating in the defense. There's this real threat of capturing on d4 now. So to defend it, it's not that easy. Probably knight e2. No other interesting moves to defend the pawn on d4. Pushing to e5 doesn't work either. He can attack 3 times, and with my pinned knight, I don't really believe in it. So it's a shame to have to play knight to e2 anyway. I have bishop to b5 otherwise, which pins his knight on c6. So that way he won't be able to take on d4. Now my bishop was very well placed on this diagonal, so it bothers me a bit to play it. Bishop to b5. But maybe that's what I have to play. Because knight to e2 really lacks any prospects for play. My knight to b5, I can't do that. I'll get hit with a6. But if I have to play bishop to b5, I think I lose all my development advantage. So I'm going to play knight to e2 for now. It's a bit passive, but listen, I play this move. It frees up the pawn on c, which can come to c3 to defend d4. And then I'll see what he does as well. He can't develop his knight to e7 or f6 because he would lose the pawn on g5. The advantage with knight e2 is that now my knight f3 is no longer pinned. So there's a real threat of capturing on g5 if he plays knight e7 or knight on f6 because his queen will no longer protect it. He plays knight f5, he attacks my bishop. Can he really do that? So obviously I can't keep it on the diagonal, but I can reposition it to d3. It's true that I'm leaving this beautiful diagonal, but on the other hand, his knight isn't so well placed. So listen, we're going to play bishop d3 quickly. I don't have much time. I have less than my opponent. These are 5-minute games plus 5 seconds increment. You still have to play fairly quickly. It's always the same problem for him. He can't develop his knight without losing the pawn on g5. So he can play h6 first. Maybe that's what he'll do. No, he takes on f3, so now I can recapture with the rook, or I could also recapture with the pawn to strengthen the center. But I think it's better to recapture with the rook. And the knight defends d4, so there's no bishop, takes d4 check. But this pawn on f4 bothers me a lot. It hinders the activity of my bishop, of my knight. So he plays king to d6. He attacks the pawn d4, so we're going to play c3 to defend it. I'll eliminate this pawn on f4 with g3. After the capture, knight recaptures, finding squares like f5 or h5. Opening the f file is interesting as bishop or queen can reach c4 to attack f7. As soon as the pawn on f4 is gone, the bishop has a real chance to strike. g5, especially since he just played queen d7. He's aiming for an opposite side castling position. So here I think I'm going to play g3. Pawn takes, knight takes, the pawn on g5 is attacked, the f file is open to attack f7. I think the structure is going to become favorable for me. Even if I'm down a pawn, I'll have a central pawn, the semi-open f file, with a backward pawn and weak squares to exploit. For my knight, that's very interesting. Maybe he doesn't have to take, but if he doesn't take, I'll get my pawn back anyway. If I play a move like queen g4 to attack my rook, probably king g2, that defends, and I can push back after his queen with h3. There you go. That's what he plays, actually. Queen g4. So this king g2, if he takes on g3, I can recapture with the rook or the knight as well. I also have queen f1 as a possible move. If he takes on g3, there are problems afterwards with an attack on f7. No, I think I'm still going to play king g2. I'm going to keep the possibility for my queen to play on other squares, like the square b3, for example, to attack f7, but also b7. So here, king g2, I still can't take on f4, but I'm threatening h3. And after that, taking on f4 will be possible because the queen will no longer establish the pin. Interesting game. An interesting king gambit. I'm still a pawn down. A somewhat weakened king shelter, but his queen managed to get close to my king. But fortunately for me, it's alone actually, so there's not really any offensive collaboration. And as soon as I'm able to push back his queen and finally break the f4 pawn, my game will be completely freed up. The f file, the bishop's diagonal with a better center, and everything will eventually turn in my favor. So queenside castling is played, h3, that's it, we push back his queen. His queen can't go just anywhere, it can't go to e6 because of the e5 fork. It can go to h5 or d7. In the end, those are the two possibilities. Then you see the pawn on d4, defended by c3. That's very important for me because it prevents his knight from being able to put pressure or get closer, and it hinders his bishop. So it hinders two of his pieces. It's very important for me to have this pawn on d4 well protected. So the good news is that he doesn't have much time left, and actually he just played queen to e6. So what did he plan for d5? I don't see it. I'm quickly checking if there's a threat, but I don't see any. So d5, the fork. He didn't find the right retreat square for his queen. So now we take on c6, attacking his queen. Then I take on f4. If he recaptures on f4, I haven't even thought about what I'll recapture with, probably the knight. Why the knight? Because the d5 square could be an interesting square. He comes with his bishop to attack my knight, but I go to d5. He can't move his knight, otherwise knight to e7, the royal fork, king and queen. Because he'll want to move his knight to put the rooks on the file to attack my king. That's what he's going to try to do. But he plays rook here, he understood, he comes here to defend the fork. Too bad I don't have a bishop, b5 the skewer. I could try to play queen e2 to manage this skewer. That could be interesting. And I'll probably do it, actually. Queen to a2. After the bishop moves out, it will free my rook, and then I threaten bishop, b5. He played knight to e7 and bishop b5. He's missing two squares, by the way, with his queen. He doesn't have many squares left. He still has the square c5, but bishop e3, and maybe his queen is going to get trapped. So bishop b5, he's going to give me a check, but I'll go to h1 with my king. There we go. He plays queen, c5. I could take his rook, but it's bishop to e3 that interests me, because for now, I haven't seen a square for his queen. Maybe there is one, but I haven't seen it. Besides, it goes in the right direction. It allows me to free my rook. And you see, after rook to g8, check king to h1, and the king is safe. So rook to g8, check king to h1. And he still has a lot of things to defend against. His queen, his rook, my knight, which can come to f6 and make forks on both rooks. Now, he has too many problems. He has run out of attacking moves, and now it's me who's going to take his pieces. And there you go. He lost on time, but he couldn't find any more moves. There were just too many problems, really. All right, I'm playing against a Chinese player. He plays d4, and for now, I'll play knight f6. I'm controlling the square e4 with my knight, Jufu f4 very quickly. And here I understand what he wants to play against me, a London system. So I'll play d5 and normally he'll play e3. There you go. That's typical of the London system. Players who play like this, they develop their bishop, play e3, c3, and try to play a healthy and very solid position. I'm going to play c5, offering to exchange the pawn from the wing for the central pawn. They decline, they play c3. If I play knight c6, I'm worried he might take on c5 and then manage to keep his pawn afterwards with b4. So here, I'm hesitating between taking on d4 or playing e6 so that my bishop can defend the c5 pawn. I'm not going to play c4 because he'll actually play b3. And after bishop 5 I won't be able to play a6. There will be an exchange on bishop 5 and I'll lose the rook on a8. So this push to c4, that doesn't work. So here, either we take or we defend this pawn on c5. All right, I'm going to take on d4. Let's see what he recaptures with. Normally he'll recapture with the pawn c. And I'll bring out my knight to c6. We have a symmetrical pawn structure. I'm not thrilled about it because I like imbalances, but here I didn't see how to create any. So I can develop my bishop before playing e6. That's actually the soundest approach. But if I bring out my bishop, I'm worried about queen b3, which will then attack b7. It's not easy to defend. I can't play. Rook b8, there's his bishop. If I play b6, my knight could become a target for attack. It will be in a pin, and on top of that, my bishop leaves. So if I come back, it's not going in the right direction. So, of course, after bishop f5, for example, queen b3, I can play. Queen d7 to defend, but after knight f3, he'll threaten to come into e5 to chase away my queen. If there's a capture, I have to watch out for certain moves. Bishop b5 and my king will be attacked, my queen and my king. You see, it's not so easy to develop your bishop, actually, in this position. And I think I'm just going to play e6. Ultimately accepting to play with the bishop trapped, so I'll develop it later on. But I didn't really see a way to solve the problem. Here I play bishop d6. I offer the exchange of bishops. He plays knight e2. All right, let's take. And we'll do kingside castling. There we go. Now bishop to d7. I'll have to find a way to solve the problem of this bishop. The rook on the file. The file is open. No pawns then. These are the best squares for the rooks. And here I think about moving the knight and supporting the development of my bishop to b5, for example, with queen to b6. And so I'm looking queen to b6 immediately. Queen b6, knight to a5, bishop to b5. You see things like that. Let's try. Queen b6. As soon as my knight moves, I have this possibility to play. Bishop to b5 to take out his best bishop, actually. But he plays b4, so he prevents me from playing knight. A5, but I'll play the knight on other squares. I do not have many other squares. Maybe e7, b8. I'm not really sure where to go, but I'll play knight to e7 for now. And so here my threat is bishop to b5. He can play queen to e2, connect his rooks, control the square b5. I can still play a6 to support the arrival of the bishop on b5. On queen e2, I can also bring my rook into c3. He plays queen b3, and you see, that allows me to play immediately. Bishop e5. And here, for him, it's difficult to refuse the exchange of bishops because behind that, there's the rook. So I'm going to solve the main problem of my position, which was the bad bishop. And after that, I'll need to come up with a plan for how to proceed. It's not easy because he can contest the file. We have an open file, and he's contesting it. So I exchange here on d3. And now I need to get the knights onto the squares e4, c4, basically all the squares that need to be occupied. So the square e4, I can't go there for now. It's controlled twice. He's targeting those squares. See the b3, knight c5. I could contest the square with jb6, but I'd have to move, my queen specifically. So here, I'm looking at knight f5 to come to d6 and target the squares e4 and c4 with my knights. You see knight f5, kd6, and then I have both knights that can target the square e4 and the square c4. He plays king b3. He's going to try to get there first. I can go into e4. He'll go into c5. And it's hard for me to take because he'll recapture while attacking my queen. So what am I looking at here? I'm considering moving my queen so I can play b6. But the square d6, that was the square for my knight. It bothers me a bit to take that square away from him. But well, maybe because after king c5, bishop 6, I've solved the problem of his knight, which has to turn back. So that's what we're going to do. Queen d6. Then knight e4, certainly. On f3, maybe knight g3, protected by my queen. So precisely the difference is that I can control this c5 square with the b6 push, but he can't control this c4 square with a pawn. The problem is that my knights can't reach this c4 square for now. To get to the c4 square, you have to go through d6 square, but my queen has come to block that square, but I needed it to support the pawn push. And my opponent is thinking, it's the first moment in the game where he's really thinking a lot. But after all, I understand him because I didn't cause many problems in the opening. I'll have to manage to cause him problems in the endgame. He plays his queen to b5, and so here I'm thinking of playing b6. I don't see any reason not to play this move. It protects the pawn on b7 that the queen was attacking, and it controls the squares for his knight. He plays queen to a6, coming to attack the pawn on a7. So I could defend it, but before defending, I'll see if I can't set a trap for him. That is, let's imagine he takes the pawn on a7. Afterwards, can he get out of my territory? If I play rook a8, what are his squares? He has the square b7, but rook b8, and he has no more squares. So I can let him take the pawn on a7 and try to bring my knights closer, for example, knight e4. Now I can also play rook c7, and if I play rook c1, double the rooks. Careful, because he will want to do that. Queen takes c8 check, and if my rook recaptures, the other rook takes with check, and that forces my queen back to f8, and I lose my queen. So maybe that's not a very good idea. But then if I play knight e4 anyway, he's going to bring a rook to c1 and attack my rook twice. So I can play queen b8 to defend twice, which will also free up the d6 square for my knight. That's what I'm going to do. Knight e4. We're launching a bit of an assault with the cavalry. In my opinion, he's going to put a rook on c1 to attack my rook twice, and I'm going to retreat with my queen. If he takes the pawn on a7, we saw that he would lose his queen. Rook a8, queen b7, rook b8. He comes back to d3. That's still interesting because I made him retreat. It's a shame that the knight on e2 is there. I don't have the c3 square with my knight. I need to free up that d6 square. So I'm going to play queen d7 to free up that square d6, so that my knights can get in later on c4. So he chases me. I should have retreated to b8 with my queen. That way I would have had knight g3 as well. Knight d6. He plays pawn to a4, and now that lets me get in on c4. I can come in with the rook to attack the pawn on b4 and prepare to double the rooks. I can come in with the knight to attack the pawn on e3, but he's going to play e4 against me. He's going to play it. e4, I can come in on e3, attack his rook, but he's going to move it. I'm not sure if that's so good for me. I'm hesitating. I think I'm going to play here. Rook c4 to prepare rook. c8, double the rooks on the file. And then maybe come into c2 once I have the rooks doubled. We'll see. If his knight moves, I'll have the entry on c3. So now I'm doubling my rooks on the file. That's actually good news. He's offering to exchange the rooks. I'm going to accept. Now he's thinking how to recapture. Normally he should recapture with the rook to contest the file. I don't have much time left, unfortunately. I have to play quickly without trying to grasp the subtleties of the position. All right, first we are going to carefully exchange the rooks. And then, after that is done, we will proceed to enter all of the necessary information directly into the file. So he plays e4, I can't take twice. I can play king g3. If he takes with the knight, I take his knight with check over there. Why not? I'm afraid of making a mistake, but let's try. I'll have to give my king an escape square so I don't have any back rank mate problems in certain lines. So he plays here. I'm going to take with check. And I'm going to enter on c4, attacking his queen. Surprise, knight takes back, and I'm looking for knight b2 to take his pawn on a 4. Ah, he'll be able to defend. He plays knight to c3. He manages to defend. Let's play f6. Let's centralize the king in the endgame. I don't have much time left, unfortunately. Let's try to centralize the king. Shall we play? h5, try to contest the space. Let's try to get in here. There's the case of trying 3, which holds, but oh well. It's an interesting game. If he takes, I'll take back with the pawn, of course. He plays g3, maybe I can play. g5, no, he'll take on f6, that won't work. Although g5 takes f6, g4 check, and I can take back afterwards. Why not? Let's try that. I play g4, check, his king. Unless squares like that, I take on f6 and then come back to try to infiltrate. But it will be difficult. His knight is very well placed. It will prevent my king from infiltrating on f4. So I take on f6. I come back to f5. He comes there. Maybe knight there to threaten knight e4. Attack g3, try to provoke the exchange of the knights. But he comes back. If I play knight there, he'll take, then we take. And that's not good for me, I think, this situation. Therefore, I will perform a thorough check once again. And I'll tease the pawn on a2 a bit. I know his knight is there, that he plans not to move it, but let's also see what he plays. Maybe, quite simply, I'm not going to manage to win this game. I won't make it. Let's play a little king move. There we go. And now I come. Ah, yes, I'm not getting anywhere at all. I'm not getting anywhere at all, unfortunately. I free up the square f5 for the knight, which could be interesting because now I'm attacking g3 and d4. That's how you needed to position yourself. But unfortunately for him, he came to e2, so he took the square away from his knight that could defend both. And now I win a pawn. He comes here. I'm going to go back to f5, attack g3 to force the king to come back and defend. And my king will go to the other side, but he left me the pawn on g3. Everything is falling apart. Now he's losing more pawns than when playing with Legos. I take h4 and everything collapses. You see now? I have two connected pass pawns. He gives me his knight. Now that's it. He can't manage anymore. But it was very hard to win this game. I congratulate my opponent.